Your identity was never only mom or dad. Your identity has been a child of God. Full stop.
Empty nest is not something done to you.
Yeah.
When you view anything as it's being done to you, whether we admit it or not, it's playing a victim card. I'm going to address something so much better when I'm voluntarily releasing control than if I feel like I'm losing it.
My thought process went something like this. I've lost control of everything. I've lost control of my life. I've lost control of my identity, of my children.
Being intentional doesn't always mean it's easy or simple. Sometimes it's incredibly inconvenient. If we're raising our children with the intentionality of releasing them,
Sure.
we're going to begin to push them out of the nest
Yeah.
earlier than when they finally leave the house.
Welcome back to Beyond the Nest. How are we feeling today?
Oh, fantastic. It's gonna be a good day.
Freaking-tastic.
Gonna be a good day.
Do you know why it's going to be a good day?
Because I'm here.
Yes, but because we are empty nesters.
We are.
Yay. And you know what? I'm going to talk today. We are going to talk today about something really, really cool. Something I think is really important about taking control of your life again in the empty nest.
That's good.
So, yeah.
That's a good, great way to start, really, because you think about most people feel like when they get into empty nest, they've lost all sorts of control.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a facade, because but in reality, you didn't really have any control to lose. But the perspective, the cultural norm that I think I want to just bust in the nose today and maybe even next week is...
You're a nose buster.
I am a nose buster because it needs to be busted. Empty nest is a fantastic phase of life.
It is.
It is not a downtime. It's not a negative time. It's not So I'm excited to hear taking back control, which is kind of an oxymoron. You're taking back something that you really didn't have anyway. Yeah. So let's do it.
Well, and here's the misnomer. We do, like you just said, we think we have control over so much, and in a small part we do, because when we had our kids initially, the babies were little, we had control over
a lot of control there.
Yeah, like what they did, when they went to bed, how, like there was a lot of control. The older your children get, from birth to adulthood, it's a process of slowly losing control over everything in their life.
I would love to reframe that.
Reframe
okay.
it. I mean, do I have a choice?
Yeah, you can shut me down.
No, I won't shut you down, ever.
From birth to launch, instead of me saying losing control, because that is a very negative way to look at it, that's a fear-based look. What if we were like, we are intentionally releasing control?
That is true.
Because if we're releasing control, we're also equipping these young adults to launch and launch well.
Yeah.
I'm going to address something so much better when I'm voluntarily releasing control than if I feel like I'm losing it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yes, releasing control. And here's one of the things that's been rolling around in my head too, just before we get right into it, is I think it's time to remind people why we're doing this. Because we've got how many episodes now under our belt? I don't know. 22?
Really?
Yeah. So we've spent a lot of time doing this. It took us almost 2 years to pull the trigger and actually do it. Yeah. We got cop-shawed.
Yeah.
Because Steve Copshaw is the one who literally was the one who helped us pull the trigger. So thank you, Steve, for cop-shawing us. Anyway.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But I feel like we're not doing this because we need something else to take up, an hour and a half of our time.
Empty time. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not doing this because we think we are the best talking heads and we just love to hear ourselves talk. Although
you kind of do.
I was going to say the same thing about you.
That's why I said it first.
We're not doing this because our lives are perfect. No, we still struggle at times with the very things that we're talking about. There are times that I sometimes have to fight sadness because, empty nest is great, but it can be lonely. I mean, I'm not going to put on any pretense. So I believe we're doing this because I have a passion, and I think you do too, for helping people thrive during this period of time.
Yep.
And I believe it's up to us to start a movement to normalize healthy relationships in the empty nest, to start a movement to normalize releasing control so we don't sink into a pit of despair when our kids finally leave the nest. Oh. Like, there is a movement behind this that I'm okay being part of and lighting the match so that people look forward to this instead of dread it. Because that's
meaning empty nest.
Empty nest. Yeah. Your kids leaving, your kids getting married.
And for anybody that, and you use the word thrive, and I love it. Right? There's the two ends of that paradigm is surviving and thriving.
Yeah.
So anybody that's listening and watching this, if you're just at the surviving stage, hang on.
Hang on.
There is a better day. There's a better opportunity to come. But if you're just surviving, stick with us. Reach out to us. Honestly, we would love to help and encourage. But if we survive, let me rephrase that. When we survive long enough, we can begin to thrive.
Yep.
And then when you begin to thrive in that season, then everything that you've learned from the surviving to the thriving, I feel like you have an obligation to now help other couples go from surviving to thriving.
Absolutely. Well, and here's the thing that a lot of people don't know is, like, we even offer empty nest coaching. Yeah. Like, we've coached people in the past, like, not even really realizing what we were doing to, I think, adjust in the empty nest a little bit better. Because sometimes you just need somebody to come alongside you, lock arms with you, encourage you, help shift your perspective, because that's what it's all about. Whatever is taking place here messes with us.
Today and next week, we're going to be really challenging that shifting of perspective in a good way.
Yeah.
And if people will listen and at least attempt what we're going to be talking about this week and next week, I think it could be a massive shift from their perspective.
For sure.
It could be life-giving.
Yeah.
So what you got?
So here's the thing. I want to take everybody back to my empty nest situation. And if you've watched our podcast for long enough, you're fairly familiar with what happened with me being a stay-at-home mom all of my life. Just I fluttered around the kids. I homeschooled. I did all the things. And then when the empty nest hit, it really sunk me into I was in a depressive state. Like, I struggled so much to the point where, my hormones were out of whack. There was nothing going on. I had no idea who I was anymore. I was on antidepressants for a season of time. I needed some help to get me over this depressed hump, because you didn't know what to do for me. I was acting uncharacteristically sad. And so that's my story. And it lasted a while. It didn't last 6 years, but you think it lasted a couple of years. I didn't feel like it lasted that long, maybe because I was in the middle of it. But here's what I want to talk about today is looking back on that period of my life. My thought process went something like this. I've lost control of everything. I've lost control of my life. I've lost control of my identity, of my children, which we can talk about what true control really is later, but I've lost control of my physical health. I've lost control of my hormone. I literally felt like I had no control over anything in my life. Nothing. And that's a really, really sad, precarious place to find yourself in. And so I want to talk today about if you are a mom sitting in that place of just deep, deep sadness and not knowing where to turn, not knowing what to do. I want to help you figure out a way to try to take back some control, because the lie in my head was I had no control. That was the big lie. But that was not the truth, because I actually had so much more control than what I realized. So I had control over my choices. I had control over whether or not I was going to continue sitting in this space. I had control over so much more. So I'm going to wake you up today, because we talked in another podcast about, remember how we talked about, we're all woken up in the suddenlies, like suddenly something happens, tragedy happens, empty nest happens. And we have to remember to live in the gradualies, you know? So maybe taking back control of your life is not going to be a suddenly thing. For some people, it might. But even if it's a gradually taking back control over areas of your life, I'm good with that. So I believe the first step that we need to do is we need to reinvest in our identity. Because one of the things that I struggled with, and I don't think it's just me. Like, I'm thinking even you had to readjust your identity as well as a dad, you know. But my identity as a mom was just floundering. So I had to figure out, how do I reinvest in my identity?
You know, the thought just now hit me though, because you're right, I had to deal with the loss of quote control. As I'm thinking about it, I think mine was more gradual, because we raised our young men to begin to become independent, 16, 17, 18, they started getting jobs. They had to figure out how to change oil way back in the day when you did that at
in
home.
Their cars.
Be able to change a tire. So there was a lot of things that I'm thinking about. I started losing that control earlier, and it was in the gradually, and I think that might have been one of the things that might have helped me. Once there was empty nest, I'd been dealing with the gradualies.
Yeah.
And for you, it felt like it was a suddenly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting shift. I think a lot of dads, if we're raising our children with the intentionality of releasing them,
sure,
we're going to begin to push them out of the nest earlier than when they finally leave the house.
Well, and here's a realization on my part, is there were gradualies that over the last few years I've recognized. Because when you raise all boys, our family was all boys, 3 boys, just boom, boom, boom. I'm the only girl. And when your boys are little, when boys or girls, it doesn't matter, are tiny and little, mama is their first, like we represent all things comforting. They come to us for their basic needs. But I do remember there came a point with my boys where I recognized, wait, they're not coming to me for certain things anymore. They got to a certain age and they gravitated more toward you, which is totally normal, because boys need to cling to dad in a lot of areas, especially when you hit, 10, 11, 12 years old. Like
tweeners and teenagers.
I remember one story, just looking back, you traveled a lot and I was home with boys and we homeschooled, and there were times that when the boys were little, like you would leave and they would rotate getting to sleep in the big bed with mom, because they're little boys, and it was sweet. And, and I remember Taylor hitting this age, and I don't even remember how old he was, but he passed. It was his turn to sleep with mom, and he just politely passed, and it kind of bothered me. And I remember talking to you about it when you got home, and he's like, ow, like he's growing up. He doesn't want to sleep with mom anymore when dad's out of town. And that realization was like, oh, like I didn't even think of it that way. So the losing control did happen gradually. However, I think the key is recognizing it. If I had recognized it as, oh, okay, like I just was too busy. If I had recognized it as, oh, okay, this is a completely normal part of life, and it's one little step in the whole process of them growing up, maybe it would have helped me in that tragic place of emptiness. So how do I reinvest in my identity? I think you got to ask yourself some questions. You got to ask yourself, who am I now? Because you're still a mom, but your roles have changed. I think I talked in another episode about how job description, like my job description as a mom, completely switched. It completely changed. Well, now that my job description has changed and I'm not doing all the things that once occupied my time, I get to decide what do I want my job description to be, I got to ask myself, who am I now that I'm not in full-time parenting mode? And that can be a really broad place to sit in. For some people, it's like a blank canvas. You know, if you're artistic, like a blank canvas is so exciting. Other personalities, it might not be as exciting. It might be overwhelming. However, I believe it's important that you ask yourself and you really do some soul searching, like, who do I want to be? Who am I? And another thing, and you're going to understand this and probably weigh in on this a lot, I think it's important to figure out, is there a personality test out there that you can take and figure out, like, really, who am I? You know, without the kids, not in a setting of motherhood, but in just a setting of me, Allison, the person. There's all sorts of personality tests. There's Myers-Briggs, there's Type Finder, there's Strengths Finders, there's
Culture Index, Enneagram,
Enneagram. Well, Enneagram people think is like,
so what?
I know, but still, like, whatever you think about stuff, there's a lot of things, but I was like, we might get some pushback from the Christian community on that. But DISC, you're a certified DISC profiler or whatever. I don't even know what we call you.
FBI profiler.
You're an FBI profiler. Yeah. Yes. Not really. But there's all sorts of things. I encourage you to do one of those. Take one of those. Get on your laptop. You know, Google what's the best test to take, you know, in 2025 to figure out my personality.
There is no best test.
Well,
there really isn't. It's like I gravitate to the DISC because I'm certified with it, but it really doesn't matter what it is. The only really pushback that I get from a lot of folks, regardless of the personality profile, is this answer right here. I don't like being put in a box.
Right.
Well, that's the wrong way to look at it. These behavioral profiles, what I look at them to is they're designed to give me an insight into what are your basic tendencies. Where's your normal bent? Where do you normally lean?
Yeah.
We can act and behave any way we want, right? It's sure. Like I can say that I am not a get down in the weeds detailed person. If you look at my desk, you realize that because I file by pile or by stack.
Oh, how I know
But
this.
when I have to, I can operate in any of the other. So I love the behavioral profiles as a guideline of this is how I would normally respond. If I don't like the way I normally respond, guess what?
Or if your wife doesn't like the way you normally respond.
That's what I meant to say, really. Yeah. That's what I meant to say.
Right.
If my wife doesn't like the way I respond, guess what? It has been scientifically proven I can change. It's called neuroplasticity. I can change how I think, which is also back into Romans 12:2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So they knew something back then that people are just now validating now, that you can actually change the way you think. Mm-hmm. So back to you on that. If you don't like the way I'm thinking, I know how to change it.
Yeah, you do. I'm gonna keep that little snip in my back pocket and use it at the right time when you go.
That's manipulative and narcissistic.
Yeah, it is. Narcissistic. Wow, that's a big word to use. And not a nice one either. I know how to spell it too. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, take your personality assessments. Here's another idea. Find you some friends. And I know we talk about this a lot. Community is big. I am sold on having people in your corner. And you know, they don't even have to live close by. True. Because we have technology today. We have cell phones. You can take your phone anywhere you go. You don't have to be home to talk with your friends on the phone. We've got FaceTime. We've got all sorts of like ways to communicate with people. Find community, find people, and hopefully if you're listening to this, you already have community. Like that's my hope and prayer for you. But ask your friends to size you up. You know, find some friends that will speak to you honestly and openly, not just tell you what they think that you want to hear, but that will tell you the truth about yourself. Like, I'm not saying that they're just going to rip you a new one, but that will tell you nicely, like, these are the strengths that I see in you. Maybe these are the things that I think you could work on. And then don't be angry.
And again, that ties it back into personality profiles. I'd rather just pull the Band-Aid off. If you don't like what I'm doing, I would much rather you just be direct and tell me and not be nice about it, because that takes way too long. I'm going to want to help you finish your sentences. So knowing how your friends communicate is really important.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about the 2 a.m. friends that we've talked about in the past. Not just the 2 a.m. It could be just the dark hour of the soul. It could be in the middle of it doesn't matter. But when you need that person to come alongside, lock arms, whether it's a spouse or a friend, those are developed in what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Is in finding your group, your community, and being intentional with it.
Yeah.
Being intentional doesn't always mean it's easy or simple. Sometimes it's incredibly inconvenient. But there will come a day when you really do need that close friend that's going to help lock arms with you, that may be able to give you that tough love, says you're not looking at this from a healthy perspective. And if you don't have a real good relationship with that person, you may not even, they may be completely right, and you may not even want to listen to them. So what you just said right now, I think, is massively huge, probably understated. Even though I've gone on and on about it, it's understated how important having a good core group is.
Yeah. And if you don't have a lot of friends, I don't think that you should despair over that. I think that no matter where you are in life, you can always find someone. I think the Bible even talks about, be a good friend if you want friends. Like, to be friendly, if that is your desire. And I think that all you have to do is you have to open yourself up to finding community, because there's like, even where we live, there's pages with our town. Like, we live in Spring Hill, Tennessee, which is south of Nashville. And, there's like Facebook pages where people reach out all the time and they're like, hey, I'm new to the area. Anybody like me, whether they're single or whatever, anybody want to get together for coffee? And I'd love to meet some people. Like, that's literally all that it takes. Now, you have to be a little careful with that, because you can get some crazies out there. Yeah. But that's just if you have nobody, maybe start there. Maybe, reach out, make yourself friendly. And go ahead. You had something to say?
Well, I'd start with local churches.
Yes.
Start building some relationships. Go to a local church. Not that everyone there is safe, but it's maybe a little bit better than just doing a Craigslist ad.
Well, yeah. I didn't say anything about Craigslist.
Well, Facebook. Craigslist.
Facebook, it's a little, I don't know.
Is Craigslist even around? Is it still out there?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so that dated us.
Yeah, maybe Anyway, I think that, here's what I want to say about having friends. I think that you have to realize that friendship is give and take. If you're the kind of person that takes without ever giving back, maybe you don't, I don't know. I don't know if you have a lot of friends. It depends on what your expectations are, but I believe we all have the ability to make friends. But ask your friends, how do you see me? Help me figure this out, And I think the last thing is to recognize and remind yourself that your identity was never only mom or dad. Your identity has been a child of God, full stop. Like, there's nothing else to add to that. Because I think even before we were parents, we were husband and wife. And I know that, like, for us,
for 6 months.
Oh yeah, not for very long. You're right. I don't know that I recommend, like.
Yeah, we started pretty quick.
We did start pretty quick. We you couldn't live without me, and
keep your hands off of me.
Yeah, that's the truth. So. The Bible says in Psalms 139:14, thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex, and everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. I am marvelously breathtaking. Even if I don't view myself that way now, that's how he views me. And at the end of my day, that's really all that matters, And so don't forget your identity outside of mom or dad, So that was the first thing. Reinvest in your identity. You get to reimagine yourself, Second step, structure your days with some intention. This is what I was missing, because my day was structured to look like this. I would drag out of bed at, I don't know, whenever I woke up. you know, because you would already would leave and work and whatever, and I'd let Jack out. I'd feed the dog. Jack was our dog. And I literally would not get dressed, and I'd lay on the couch and I would flip through. I've talked about Downton Abbey just because that came out about the time that all of this was happening. And I love like aged historical shows like that, you know, period historical shows. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but you know, you get the gist. And that's literally what I would do. Like some days I wouldn't eat, but if I did eat, I would eat just junk, just awful things. I wasn't exercising. I was literally cocooned away in this. I was surviving. Yes, I was. So my days had no structure, no intentionality to them. And that was, I think, okay for me for a while, but I couldn't stay there. I couldn't stay there. So you have to figure out how to structure your days with a little bit of intention, because here's what happened to me. Like the rhythms of my life from when the kids were there were gone. Like I had no rhythm. I had to figure out that rhythm again. You know, like if you're a mom, when you drop off kids to school or whatever, your life is structured. That's a rhythm that structures your life. You know, your life is structured by the rhythm of getting kids up, fixing breakfast, dropping them off at school. You've got to maybe take one to the dentist, or you've got appointments stacked until you pick kids up again. And then you've got maybe ball practice, and you've got homework and getting dinner. All of those little tasks throughout the day make up like a rhythm in any given day. And so I found myself, even though the rhythm of dropping kids off to school was long gone, there were still some rhythms too. You know, the record was kind of slowing down and getting broken, but with nobody home, there was nothing. And so I just was adrift. It was like I was at sea on a lifeboat, and I didn't really know what to do. Like it was that bad. So I'm telling you, if you can figure out a way to structure your day a little bit more, if you can't structure most of your day or all of your day, structure a little bit of it. And with our phones now, you can set alarms. Set an alarm on your phone to remind yourself, oh, I need to eat breakfast. You know, set an alarm the night before to lay something out, or to figure out what you're going to eat the next day for breakfast, instead of, you know, leftover, I don't know, cotton candy from something, or whatever it might be. Like you can't survive on stuff like that. Set your phone alarms, set some health goals for yourself. That was a big one for me. To try to set some health goals, because I know we talked on another podcast about, you kept telling me, why don't you just get out and get up and go run?
Get some sun.
Like I could just flip that switch and get out and go run, and I just lost interest. And so set some goals, even if they're small, it's okay, you know. Set some of those goals. Try to plan something every week that includes getting out and moving, even if you take a walk just around your neighborhood. I happen to love gardening. Like I could get out in the backyard and mess around in flowers and garden and things like that. Maybe rediscover the things that you used to enjoy doing, and set a goal to do it at least maybe once a week, twice a week. You know, the healthier you get, I think that timeline moves up. But I think that's super, super important. And I think even within a marriage, it's not real good on a marriage if one of us lets ourselves completely go. Literally, you know. I'm sure you were worried about me first and foremost, but I believe that the mental offloading of exercising for me would have helped so much, and it would have helped me communicate better with you. So if you're not a physical person, like I have one sister, and we're like, we talk alike, we act alike, we look nothing alike, but we also like different things. Like she hates exercising. I love exercising. She hates to sweat. So exercising for her would not be something that she would go, ooh, I'm going to build this into my life. But other things, she could find other things that she could really get a hold of.
To piggyback on that, to the higher degree of clarity that you have on that, the more likelihood something's going to be completed. So I would take it a step further. Instead of saying, get outside, I would say get outside for at least 10 minutes and do X. Because the more clarity we have on anything, the more likelihood it's going to be completed. And also, like you said, keep it simple. I'm just going to get out one day this week and then maybe two. Well, I would, again, tie it back to, I'm going to get out one day for 10 minutes and do this. Yeah. That's clarity. But there's been a lot of studies around that. It's like this, one of the examples was this guy wanted to do 100 push-ups. And it was such a big number to him for where he was physically.
Yeah.
Guess how many he did? None.
One.
He didn't do any because it was too big of a number. So they helped him by saying, I'm going to do at least one push-up today. That was very specific. And when he got down on the floor to do one, because his mind's like, I can do this. When he got down on the floor to do one, guess what?
He could do more.
He did more than one. And so it's a framework around our mind with clarity, specificity. We allow ourselves to do more. Mm-hmm. And then once we start doing more, we're willing to go and do just a little more.
Yeah.
So it's a good little step. Well,
and I believe exactly what you said. I feel like those little things become anchor points in our day, and by anchor, I mean it tethers you to something that is good instead of just the sea of nothingness.
See, and I love the word tether over the word anchor. Again, words are so incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
An anchor, think about it. What does it do? It drops and it keeps you in one spot. A tether doesn't do that. A tether allows mobility, it allows motion. So tethering keeps you in a healthier perspective. Anchor, I just don't like that word necessarily.
Well, okay, I won't use it then.
Well, there's progress.
You know what I mean. Like anchor, tether, yes. You say you don't get down in the weeds, but you get down in the weeds on some things.
On some things.
Yeah. So that was a weed moment right there. That was, maybe I should explain this. Never mind. We'll move past it. Yeah. Okay. So now you've thrown me completely off base. Here's what I wanted to say too about, you talked about going outside. I read something the other day that talked about how, our eyes are the primary way that we absorb vitamin D from sunlight.
Yes.
And think about this. We were raised we always had to wear sunglasses. Wear sunglasses or the sun's going to be too bright for your eyes. Well, what if we've shut down? I'm not saying don't ever wear sunglasses. Don't hear that. But what if we've shut down the primary way to absorb vitamin D, getting out in the sunlight? So I would recommend maybe going out without sunglasses.
I would encourage people, honestly, to begin doing some deep work on what does sunlight do.
Yeah.
We have a good friend, Ken. He has gone way deep into what are the impacts of natural light. His health is drastically changing for the better because of things like the grounding. I mean, the things that some people would think, okay, that's just a little
That's a little woo-woo, yeah.
But, man, he doesn't wear... And so I can't tell you how many times I will intentionally not wear sunglasses unless I'm driving and there's a lot of windshield glares.
Yeah.
I intentionally not, because there's also studies around that says that when your eyes pull in natural sunlight, your body begins to release a pigment into your skin, and it is designed to prevent massive sunburn.
Yeah.
So sunscreen, if you want to do any studies on that, this is controversial too, but sunscreen is so many chemicals. That's since the introduction of sunscreen, skin cancers have just exploded.
Yeah.
So
I know.
Do your own research. I know that's a totally different, that'd be a good deep end concept maybe. What does sunscreen do to the body?
Yeah, it would. Well, here's the thing too. I think that women and men our age neglect to do And sometimes we're not cognizant of, like I said, like the whole diet thing, the whole taking care of your body thing. We're not cognizant of what we are putting in our body. We're eating things that taste good, and we're letting our taste buds drive the car for us. But typically, the older you get, your protein consumption goes down, it decreases. And I believe that it should be opposite. I think we need to eat protein because protein is satiating. Protein, you have to have protein to build strong muscles.
Would you say that taste is almost like a learned behavior?
It's totally a learned behavior because I talked to your dad the other day. I kind of had a tough love moment with my father-in-law because he is a diabetic and things have been stressful and he hasn't been eating. And I was like, you have to fuel your body. I realize this doesn't taste good, but because I love him, I want him to fuel himself so that he has energy and strength to do the things that he needs to do. And it's I would tell myself the same thing. Like I mean, I love food more probably than the next person. I've spent my whole life cooking for people. And when you cook, you like to eat. But
well, it's always good if you're a cook that you like to eat what you cook. Never trust a skinny cook. That's what I always heard.
Yeah, maybe not. But I do think that I have to remind myself, even now, I'm fueling my body, even though this might not be my favorite thing to eat. If it's healthy, if I know it's good for me, and I would encourage you to do some studies on eating for your blood type, because there's a book. There are things you can read out there about certain blood types need certain food groups, maybe more, or their body responds differently.
What did you learn about yourself in
That like eating carnivore for me is a big deal. Like my body responds very, very well with my blood type because I have a universal blood type. And so, like decreasing the sugar. You have to have carbs to live, but the kind of carbs, there's different kinds of carbs that you eat. Like my carbs can't come from ice cream. And I love like Haagen-Dazs coffee chip ice cream. Yes, I mean, I could like swim in a vat of that. It's been probably 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah. So, but I had to figure some things out about my body. There's a cookbook. I've got on the shelf over here, like a blood sugar cookbook. Like there's resources out there. You just have to find them. You need to, like, if you're going to eat for your blood type, you need to know what is my blood type? Go to your doctor. It's a simple test.
What tied this all back for me? I feel like I've lost track.
I'm just tying it back to being healthy, like taking control of your health.
Got it.
Of your choices. Yeah. So anyway, so that was another one. Structure your day with intention. Let's move on. So maybe start something new. Do something that you haven't had time to do because you've been busy raising kids, or you've been busy running to track meets, or ball stuff, ball games. Well, I was just thinking, like, none of our kids played travel ball, but like sometimes parents are like, they are hoofing it from state to state with competitive ball teams, and so figure out, what can I do that's new? Maybe launch a business. Like, I know people who have started businesses in their 50s, launch a business, take a class. I've always wanted to learn how to paint. The problem with that is I'm not particularly artistic, so I had to kind of figure this out about me, like as far as painting and drawing goes. Take a cooking class. We've taken cooking classes before, have we not?
Yeah.
There was a Sur La Table, like, cooking class in town. We've gone to just different wine pairings, and I don't know, just we didn't do that when the kids were home. Mm-hmm. So think of things you can do if you're still married and you like your partner, because sometimes we liked each other and sometimes we didn't, but we liked each other a lot more when we would do things together. if you're a gym rat, which we just talked about, people not taking care of themselves in the empty nest, but some people are the opposite. Some people don't ever lose that. Maybe learn how to teach some of the classes that you love to take. Like, there's so many things. We love playing pickleball. Pickleball is a big deal. And I thought pickleball was just for like really old people. But apparently the best pickleball player in the world 16, is like 16, yeah. Or it was the last time I checked, like a year ago. I was like, what?
What if they could start a podcast?
Start a podcast. There you go. Because that's fun. It is a lot of fun, So figure out what you could do. Here's another thing that I did, and this might be a little controversial, but you remember a couple of years ago, I took that conceal carry class. I made the highest score in the class, and there were men in it. I am not even joking. Lindsay, my daughter-in-law, and I took this class. My mom did too, so I don't know. You love guns. We've gone to the shooting range because you want me to learn how to at least know my way around a gun and not be scared of one. So I took a gun safety class. I don't know, find anything to do that is different. So
I want you prepared to use it. That's my biggest concern. I hope you never have to.
Yeah.
But the thought of if someone were to break in and me not be here, I want you to be prepared to use it. Now, I'm reminded of Kaylee's dad and stepmom. When he came in unannounced.
Oh, yeah, because they live in Kentucky, rural Kentucky, and there's guns. And they got guns on the walls just for decoration.
She met him at the door.
Yeah, our other daughter-in-law has grown up in, like, she grew up probably knowing how to shoot a shotgun before she could even maybe spell her name. I don't know. But, yeah. You want to announce to your gun-wielding wife when you're home early from a business trip.
Yeah,
we'll just say that.
He decided to surprise her and come in early from the trip.
Yeah.
He won't do that anymore. She met him at the door, gun cocked and loaded, and then she gave him a what for showing up without.
I know. That's funny.
I'm just trying to surprise you. Well, you did.
Yeah.
So it was...
Well, I think a lot of people are probably thinking, I don't even know what I would do that's new. And I would encourage you to roll back the hands of time. What things did you enjoy doing when you were younger? What did you enjoy? What did you like? What were your hobbies? What were your the things you were good at that you had to lay down once you had children? Maybe start there.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to challenge words. I think I'm on my date. You're usually the contrarian with me, so this feels a little fun.
You like it, don't you?
It is.
See?
It's a little empowering.
Yeah.
How much control.
I'm helping you take your control back.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But it's like being able to take back control of something that, well, you use the word, I now know where it's going. Use the word of something you had to lay down when you were parenting. I don't think we felt like we had to. It was something that we chose to let down. We preferred to focus on the parenting side of things than our own needs. So what did we give up? What willingly? What did we lay down voluntarily when we were focused purely on parenting, or we felt like we didn't have the time to because our priority was this? What can we begin doing now? You disagree?
I do. And I'm going to tell you why.
I know you will.
Because there's a difference between being a mom and a dad. You might have had the choice to decide to lay some things down, but when you are a caregiver for a newborn baby, and then you have another one a few years later, and there were things that I literally did not have time to do. And you can argue with me that's fine. But
not here, not for our wonderful audience here.
That's fine.
Like between not having time and choice of priority. And I will always tell you it's a matter of priority. Don't ever tell me you don't have time to do something. You will choose what you want, what is most important in the moment, and that is a priority choice. You are never without a choice.
Okay. Well, moving on, because I don't think that we're ever going to agree on this. Okay. But that's okay. That's all right. I think that's the difference between a perspective, but it's also the difference between a mom and a dad. And so, yeah, I'm not saying because I had to lay things down that I wouldn't have chosen to, but there was no time to do both. There just wasn't, because you've got babies that are dependent on you. And anyway.
Yeah. So much for letting it go. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so if you're still listening after watching us fight, we like to fight on camera, apparently. Find those things that you want to do. Find new things that you can do with your spouse if you're not in a big fat fight, and have fun with them, So first thing was reinvest in your identity, structure your days with intention, start something new, reconnect relationally. This is a big one. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of people in the empty nest who lose connection with a spouse because you've spent all of these years raising kids.
Don't you think that they're losing connection before empty nest, though? And
yes.
It just surfaces?
It just surfaces, yeah. Okay. But I think that if you still have a spouse hanging in there with you, then I think, it's worth reinvesting in a relationship. It's worth trying to reconnect. Find things that you can do together. Because if you think about it, a lot of people are married, and they're married years before they even have kids. They invest in their marriage. So now you don't have kids at home. You can spend time reinvesting. I think you just have to make a choice to do that. If your spouse is not, dangerous and you're still married, then reinvest in your marriage,
Agreed.
Do you have ideas on how to reinvest in a marriage?
Well, time more than anything else, being willing to be inconvenienced with that. I think one of the things you and I both enjoy doing is really it's on the mentorship side of things.
Yeah.
What can we do to help? Where would we have been, let's say a decade, 12, 13 years ago, if there would have been another couple that had already been through empty nest, and they would be able to give good, solid, healthy advice on these are some healthy transitions, and to reframe it from a perspective of, instead of us dreading empty nest, to this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
This is going to be an opportunity. I just think that is a lost art today. I think it was something very, very common maybe 50 years ago. I don't know. We weren't there. But I just got to believe that being able to invest in some of these younger parents as they've got teenagers at home, just even giving some of these teenagers some of the one-liners that I've given, we will outlast you. That's a very simple phrase. And when I share that with a mom or dad that's got teenagers, it's almost life-giving.
Yeah.
It's like we can outlast them. I mean, that's just a different framework. I shared one with one of my clients the other day, and he actually got up and wrote it on the whiteboard because he loved it. And that was intense moments of fellowship.
Oh.
He's like, I love it because we don't have, we don't want to fight, and not everything that we disagree on is a fight, but sometimes it's just an intense moment of fellowship. But, this is a guy, he's a little over a decade younger than me, but he's got kids at home, teenagers. And just being able to give them some one-liners sometimes where you and I have taken for granted, it was life-giving.
Yeah.
And, for me, there's really not much more for fulfilling things that I can do than to equip, resource other people, which is, again, why we're doing this.
Exactly. It's to mentor people. It's to mentor even a younger generation to maybe avoid the pitfalls that we found ourselves tripping up in.
And, I think a lot of the things you've talked about before is a lack of purpose. I think if we were to intentionally look for some of these younger families, obviously relationship, you don't want to go barging in and giving advice where it's not welcomed, but what would have happened to you when you were struggling with this identity if there was somebody that was actually looking to you for help? You would have probably been able to pull yourself out a little quicker because you knew that what you had to offer to this younger mom would have been so life-giving.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a fulfilling, purposeful part of your life too.
Yeah. And there likely were people around me that needed that I just didn't.
Couldn't see it.
I didn't see it. Yeah. Reconnecting with your spouse is a big deal in the empty nest. And I think that if you were to survey, we've never done this, but if I were to survey kids who have left the nest, I guarantee you all of them would say that they want their parents to be happy. They want their mom and dad, their marriage to be thriving, and for them to live their life so they can live theirs.
Remember when the boys were younger? I don't remember which book it was. We read a lot of books. That was one thing that we did as a family. We read a lot. But I remember multiple authors, psychologists, doctors that said the number one thing that you can do for the benefit of your kid was to have a great marriage.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I do.
I don't think that changes just because you have empty nest or adult children in empty nest.
Mm-mm.
I think one of the greatest gifts we can give our sons as adults is that they know mom and dad are healthy. Mom and dad, as far as the health, physical health, marriage health. When we do that, that's quite a gift to them.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing that I think you got to really reinvest in relationally is your grown children. And I think for some parents, this is challenging because you have to change the way that you relate to them. We've talked a lot about how do I view my kids as a mother of kids who have moved on and gotten married and they're living their lives away from our home.
I actually like the way you said it in one of the previous podcasts. You have to be able to see your kid as someone other than just your kid.
Yeah.
They're that friend.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't manhandle or dictate things that a friend should do.
Right.
But sometimes we take liberties with our kids because they're kids that we can dictate and that's just wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's like what I said a while ago. I believe that we're called to create a movement of normalizing certain relationships with our empty nest kids. And not just that, but with the people that marry our children. Because I believe that, I want to normalize being a healthy mother-in-law. I don't want to be the monster-in-law. I don't want my daughters-in-law to look at me that way. And I think that it's an investment. If I'm going to invest in my own children, if I don't see my daughters-in-law as my own children, even though I didn't give birth to them, that investment is probably going to be weak. And so I want to normalize investing in those girls as much as I would invest in my boys, because they're part of our family. That's who our children have chosen to marry. Mm-hmm. And so connecting relationally, finding ways to do that. How do we come alongside? Like, our boys are busy. Like, I don't get lunch dates all the time with I can't tell you the last time I had a lunch date with any one of my kids, but I've had lunch dates with my daughters-in-law, what can you do to come alongside? Let's say you have grandchildren, I believe those grandchildren they're a gift to me. They give me life and purpose. That adds to my purpose. But I also think that there's ways that I can come alongside and be just helpful to my daughters-in-law. Like, I only have one daughter-in-law that has kids, but I go to a physical therapist for now. That's right. But on the way back, there's a grocery store that's off of the exit that we would go to their house. And there's sometimes I'll text her and I'll be like, hey, I've got to run into Publix. Do you need anything? And sometimes she'll say, yeah, I could really use whatever. And I'll pick it up and I'll just drop it by her house because I know that's going to help her because she's got a napping baby at home. And so just trying to think of things that are going to be beneficial for their benefit, not just mine. And so relationally reconnecting with people, with your spouse, with your kids, but with friends, we're really, really blessed to have a group of friends that are in the same season of life as we are. And I think, we've got a dinner club. We don't meet as often as we used to, but we'll get together occasionally and everybody will bring something to someone's house. And it's just nice because you don't have to work we've known each other long enough. You don't have to work to entertain anybody.
Well, the last time we got together, you sent the note out, I am not going to put on makeup.
I'm not putting on makeup.
It's like, it was
Come
clear.
comfy. Yes.
When we first started the dinner club thing, it was a very intentional, it was very structured, right? There's like, it goes back to the coaching side of things where discipline fuels growth, rhythm creates sustainability.
Yeah.
And so I think we're in a rhythm now with our friends.
Yeah, we are.
Because it is just as much an impromptu, hey, drinks on the patio, 6 o'clock tonight, who can make it? It's just very impromptu. No one has to perform. No one has to try to impress. You don't have to be on your best behavior.
Nope.
You don't have to wear makeup. I can wear my cowboy hat and wife beater and boots with shorts if I want to.
You can. And we're going to see that hopefully before long. So anyway, let's move on because we need to wrap it up. We need to land this plane. I think the last point that I want to make that I think is I know it is so important is to stay spiritually anchored. And I know this is not necessarily a Christian podcast. I'm not trying to take everybody to church, but if you are not anchored, tethered, anchored
I'm not saying a word.
in something, then you're really going to be adrift. And I believe the thing that has helped me to stay even more anchored during the empty nest is my faith. And so I think it's so important for you to stay spiritually anchored. I think that if I look at empty nest as not just an emotional shift, but it's almost an invitation, a spiritual invitation to lean in even deeper to Him, to Holy Spirit, then it's going to help me stay more grounded. Because my identity, first and foremost, the way I view myself is I am a child of God first. And then I'm a wife, and then I'm a mom, and then I'm a grandma. So there's this totem pole in my head with my identity. And I believe that is a really good grounding tool, is to lean into Him, because there's so many things that we go through in our life that there's a scripture, there's a spiritual principle for whatever I'm dealing with. I just have to dig it out. I have to mine for the gold that's in my Bible. And it's not just words on a page. It's living, it's breathing, it's active, it's interactive with me, with you. And we've literally seen it shift us in our lives in ways that we couldn't have done that. Circumstances couldn't have done that. You'll never convince me that has not been a saving grace in our lives.
100%.
Yeah. So, I think if you've got a Bible app on your phone, there's all sorts of devotional plans, start there. Start with finding a devotional plan and just do it. That could be another anchor point in your day, is get up every morning, do your little devotional that's on your phone. We talk a lot about journaling, I need to be better at journaling, but I've dug up old journals that just I can read through and see, wow, I was really going through it. Or, oh my goodness, I forgot that this happened, and it bolsters my faith. But it's you talk a lot too about journaling as a way to get thoughts out of your head and onto the paper so that you can have more space in your head. It's not cluttered up with all of these thoughts.
What you communicate on paper is absolute clarity.
Yeah.
Right. We have multiple thoughts, millions of thoughts that can be going through our head at any one time. So it can get kind of confusing with all of the synapses firing. But when you go to write something down, you're writing one thought at a time.
Yeah.
One letter to one word creates one thought. So the clarity that you get when you journal is, I think, to me, is really where the power part of that comes from.
Yeah.
So there are electronic versions. I love the Remarkable. You have the paper journal. Taylor and Payton, I don't know about Logan, but Taylor and Payton use something called Day One Journal. The beautiful thing on that is it is an electronic history of, like Taylor had mentioned before, he started, I think he's been using it 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And so
that's a long time.
It will say on this date, April X, whatever it was, 2021, and it shows him what he was thinking on or what he was processing. And that's unique because the paper journals, I've got stacks of them upstairs over the years, and they're just lined up, and I don't go through them. I save them because Peyton says he wants them when something happens to me. But the electronic version is pretty cool because it kind of gives you an opportunity to just quickly reflect back on it.
Yeah.
So I think journaling is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
I was going to go back on the last one you said about your faith. One thing that I would encourage people, first of all, if you're faith-based, keep at it, stay after it. If you're not, recognize these are principles. And we're, like you said, we're not trying to take someone to church, but I am a huge advocate of who God is and what he's done for me and for us. My encouragement is anyone that's now going to say, well, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to read the Bible. Maybe it's been a long time since we've read it. Maybe I've never read it. And, here's a promise. Be careful about the timeline. God's word is true.
Yeah.
It will always be true. But what we sometimes do is we'll put such a high degree of timeline on it that if it doesn't happen tomorrow, we throw up our hands and say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't happen this time next week. I mean, there are promises that are in the Bible that we are still holding on to that have not happened yet. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It's going to happen. That's where part of the faith is. But my encouragement would be, don't look for a quick fix.
Damon Thompson says that if you're stuck to a timeline, you've got an unhealthy relationship with time.
I would agree.
And so, that's really good. Here's another idea. If you're a visual person, and I'm a visual person, put scriptures, uplifting scriptures to you. Like one of my favorite ones as we're talking through this is, behold, I'm doing a new thing. Because empty nest is new for people. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Find scriptures that are life-giving to you. Put them on note cards. Stick them on your refrigerator. Stick them on your mirror. If you don't mind having lipstick on your mirror, write them in lipstick. I've known people that have done that. Put them all the places that you normally frequent throughout your house, so that you're reminded every day. It's before your eyes. I
love that verse, but I love the next part of it the best. It says, I will create a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert.
Yeah.
So when you look at the scenario that you're in, if you don't see a way out, that is a particular verse.
Yeah.
Exodus, what is it? Exodus 14?
No, it's
what is it?
It's if you hadn't asked me, I would know.
Well, you look it up while I'm telling the story, because when we are in a situation where we don't feel like there's a way out, that is one of the verses that I would definitely cling to, because it says he will make a way in the wilderness. If you think about what the wilderness is, it is, and I just got back from, I can't see that far.
Isaiah 43:19.
Isaiah, thank you. Got back from the Smokies, and outside of the trail that we were on, we had this wonderful discussion, is like, what was it like for the pioneers to try to traverse that geography? You had horses and wagons. It's like, how on earth would you get through that? How long would it take? Because it was so thick. You would have to literally cut a path with axes. They didn't have chainsaws. And you go back to the scripture and it says, I will make a way in the wilderness and I will create rivers in the deserts. What an amazing encouragement when you feel like you're faced up against something where you don't know what to do. That's a good one to put on the mirror.
He'll fight for you.
And that's another one. Yeah.
It's full of it. So reinvest in your identity, structure your days with intention, start something new, reconnect relationally, stay spiritually anchored. So that's all I got for today. What do you think?
No, it's
anything else to add?
Well, it's good. I mean, you've talked about, go through those again, because there was something I was going to add earlier and I never got a chance because you wouldn't quit talking.
Oh, reinvest in your identity, structure your days with intention, start something new, reconnect relationally, stay spiritually anchored.
I think the first one, say it again.
Reinvest in your identity.
You'd said something that when we were talking about the perceived identity that you have, And there's, again, it goes back to the coaching stuff that we've talked about. It's in the book, on the Legacy Navigator book. When we are able to reframe things that are going on in our lives, instead of it being done to me, but when we are able to reframe that, reshape that, this is something done for me. Empty nest is not something done to you.
Yeah.
When you view anything as it's being done to you, whether we admit it or not, it's playing a victim card. If we play the victim card, we are stifling our own growth. We are putting ourselves in a place that we will not be able to find a way out of because we're the victim.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there are not scenarios where someone is a victim, but anybody that has truly been a victim and then went on to accomplish great things in their life, they will tell you themselves, I was able to somehow see that was done for me, not to me.
Yeah.
When it's seen as for me, the sky's the limit. You will absolutely grow through that. So the empty nest phase, what we've talked about, is taking back control. How do I view this? Am I viewing this empty nest phase as something done to me?
Or something happening to me?
Or something
versus happening for me. Yeah.
When I look at it, empty nest is done for me. Literally, the future of what I'm looking at is now wide open. Whereas if this is something done to me, I can honestly get stuck right there in the present and everything that you described it like you were going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was going to add that.
That's a good identity shift. Yeah. So anyway, we're creating a movement. So we really, really, really want you to be part of this movement. So like our video, comment, tell us what you think. Like literally, let's have a conversation on YouTube, and I promise we'll get to a comment, as soon as we can, but share. And if you're interested in empty nest coaching, reach out to us and let's have a conversation about it. But for today, that's all we got. So until next time, welch out.